Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Good Eye Podcast. My name's Jay Smack, and here we talk about the big umbrella is positive stuff. A bunch of little umbrellas underneath it, including creativity, interesting subjects, inspiring stories, nonprofit organizations, health, wellness, all that under that bigger umbrella. And today my guest is Aaron Kirkpatrick. Aaron's official title is the Artistic and Education Manager at Young Audiences Arts for Learning. At least that's what it says on his LinkedIn page. He's now in the Virginia Beach area, heading up programs for Arts for Learning. And essentially what he is doing now is shooting videos and bringing artists in to teach the students in the programs at Arts for Learning. And there's a lot going on. So let him explain exactly what he's doing. But it's really cool, and it involves the arts and teaching with the arts, and also with a nod to musicians, giving them quote-unquote gigs, which is more than a gig to a musician, teaching children, but giving them opportunities for gainful activities as well, because they're getting paid to help these kids. So it helps everybody involved, and the motivation is just really cool, and I'll let Aaron explain a little bit more about it during our conversation. Here's my conversation with Aaron Kirkpatrick from Arts for Learning on today's Good Eye Podcast. All right, well, we're rolling now, and I'm talking to Aaron Kirkpatrick of Arts for Learning. And Aaron, I appreciate you being on the Good Eye Podcast, man.
Hey, thank you for having me. Pleasure. Yeah,
we met, as I often do, met you at a networking meeting that Synapse that focuses on helping nonprofits as well as bringing people together. And it was really cool to hear what it is you do, and we'll get into it. But to be honest, I'm still a little bit confused about the mission of Arts for Learning and some of the crossovers. So we'll peel those layers away. But when I heard that you worked with an organization that focuses on teaching through the arts, and it's not just music, but of course Steve Van Dam, as we mentioned offline, was on this show a couple months ago, and Light the Music, his program helps teach mostly young kids through art and music and visualization. But why don't you explain what exactly Arts for Learning is, the nonprofit that it is, and why it exists, what your mission is, and then we'll kind of peel back some of the other layers.
Okay, great. Yeah, so Arts for Learning, which is the Virginia chapter of Young Audiences, which is a national nonprofit organization. And the Virginia chapter that we represent, we've been in existence for 65 years. So, very storied organization, deeply rooted here with operating statewide through Virginia, but most of our work happening in Hampton Roads, where I'm located. I live in Virginia Beach, and our office is in Norfolk. So what Young Audiences does, and by extension, Arts for Learning, the Virginia chapter, we bring arts integrated programs into student communities. So this takes multiple forms. We do performance assemblies where an artist will have an interactive educational performance experience that may be brought into a media center or auditorium or cafetorium or basketball court or all the various spaces in the school system where groups are brought together for performances. We also represent workshops and residencies, workshops taking place in a shorter format, perhaps one session or a couple of sessions, where a teaching artist we represent all disciplines of art, and part of our mission and goal is to have a very comprehensive roster of the art forms represented, so that schools looking for something specific to supplement their learning with arts integration can find an offering that's really applicable for their needs at that time. And workshops will come in with teaching artists working directly with students, and residencies, which take place over a longer period of time, such as the Military Child Initiative, which is a multi-year program dealing with students from the children of service members that, and in our area in particular, because Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, these areas, we have a lot of service members that make up our community. And many times these students are, they're asked to move throughout the country. So as they're entering into a new community, having a program like the Military Child Initiative where we create stories with them and there's visual art and some playwriting, creating, inter school student communities for these kids to connect with their new home and find a way to express themselves and really settle in through the arts, which, that's really at the core of our beliefs, is that not only is the educational experience and the teaching happening in the classroom, it's happens quicker through art, through play. And we know there's science to back those things up. And also the experiences hands-on with art that a young person can have to broaden their self-imposed limitations or view of themselves, and where we fit as a whole, and creating those valuable things like empathy and community and connection to each other. And those things we think happen through the arts, not only plays, but music and sculpting and dance and puppetry and magic. And so we offer the full gamut of programs, and that makes it fun and always a learning experience for me too. My background is in acting and theater and playwriting and comedy. So there's many things like I've contributed curriculum to a photography residency. And before I start creating the curriculum, I don't know anything about photography. So always keep myself up on that. So, yeah.
The program for service members moving into the area seems absolutely perfect, not only by using the arts as a means to educate and connect kids with other kids, but because, like you said, using art as a teaching device, there's cognitive benefits, et cetera, developmental benefits. How do people coming into the area find your program? Are you connected with other programs that say you need to check this out? Because I remember being a little kid and being aware of having friends whose parents were in the military, and just the prospect of moving so much was scary. As a little kid, it can be scary. How do they find you?
Well, we find them. Sometimes they find us, and we have a dedicated person on our staff who's the school relationship coordinator. And at the heart of her job, which is multifaceted, but letting schools know when funding is available to supplement a potential copay or limit the cost for the schools. Schools don't have a lot of extra money many times floating around to create art programs or, out of school, after school programs. So we're also, Arts for Learning is a grant writing body, and being able to approach sources of funding with a mission for what we'd like to do with those funds, and then dividing them into units so that we can approach a school. For instance, this year in the city of Portsmouth, through grants that we have, performance assemblies can be available to a Portsmouth public school for a copay of $65, with the rest of the cost being covered by the grants that were written to bring that programming there. And those are really exciting conversations to have with a school, that if you're looking at just an open menu or trying to hire a freelance artist, certainly I wouldn't be able to approach an artist on our roster and say, hey, it's you don't want to do it for free if you really have put the time and talent and energy into those things. So contacting the schools is something we do every day. That outreach work is happening, as well as community centers, community groups, YMCA, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, things like that, to figure out really wherever there are groups of young people and how we can potentially introduce some arts education integrated content for those communities.
You mentioned your a grant writing body. What is the distinction between a nonprofit that is or is not? I'm not sure of the difference. I guess your average run-of-the-mill nonprofit is not necessarily a grant writing body?
I don't even know if I could speak to that really as far as the breakdown of how those things work.
I was just curious.
Yeah, no. Well, now I'm very curious.
Sounds like
how other people structure their, how to get the thing from idea to fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, the approach is to, constantly be writing grants for all of the available applicable sources of funding so that the content and artists that we have on our roster can find a home for the work that they want to do.
That leads me to my next point. Where do you find your teaching artists? How do they become involved?
Okay, so this is a big part and maybe my favorite part of what my role is in the organization. So I'm the art and education manager. And to break down my job description would be to help support the work that's being done by the artists that are already on the roster, to encourage and support the programs that are on the roster, to generate new innovative programs, and to constantly scout and reach out through every network that we have available to find artists that want to do work in art education integrated programs. So sometimes that means I went to a comic expo. It was the NOICE, NOICE, it's Norfolk. Anyways, it's a comic book expo.
I bet the C is comedy. I bet it is. NOICE.
So to be able to find an artist that we were hoping to bring back, there was a former program for comic book illustrators to go into schools and encourage students to create their own comics. And recently we brought Matt Harrison onto the roster through the contact that we made at that comic book expo to see. And he already had something he had done for a career day before. And then we talked back and forth based on how to match up the Virginia standards of learning and the goals of the school with art that can come in and accomplish both those things. So it's never just art. It's never just education. The convergence of those two things is the heart of what makes something, on brand for us. So,
are you constantly looking for people? I'm just wondering if anybody listening could go to a contact place.
Absolutely. Through the website, through yav.org. There's also arts4learning.org. You can find an artist application on the website where there's an inquiry. It's just a really simple form that's asking about, hey, what's your idea? What do you want to do? What's your background? Anyone interested as well can email me directly at artsed@yav.org, where, I'm always looking to have conversations, because even if at the end of a conversation, if the artist says, well, thank you for your time, I don't know if I've got a program in mind or something that I do that matches up with the mission, then through that conversation, there's probably, oh, hey, who you should talk to? And the, oh, hey, you should talk to conversation is the one I should be having every day. Because, we have 130 artists that are represented on the roster, and there's still room to grow. Because, for instance, I just had a session for, and we'll get into Take10 pretty soon, but just yesterday we were shooting videos with an artist named Natasha Lashansky. And Natasha, when I had an interview with her, her background is she's a musical theater actress, and she teaches yoga for young people. And she has a background in languages and studied languages in school. And I said, well, can we combine that? Can we make a bilingual yoga instruction? She was like, yeah, that'd be great.
Wow.
That's exactly the kind of stuff through conversation that we can think of together based on, just listening to people about what are their skills, what are their backgrounds, and how those things might be able to come together. And I'm really excited about that. We we shot a video of it yesterday, but that's the kind of program, and definitely that in particular, that I want to offer next year and find a home for, because it's just so packed with great things. She talks about mindfulness and leads students through a creative, imaginative process through yoga moves of visualizing things and storytelling, and then you add the in this instance Spanish. You're adding in that language component as well, and just the kind of stuff I just get really excited about that.
Wow, that's amazing. And when you start talking, at least in my mind, you start talking about possibilities rather than square peg, square hole. You're the mind and the imagination really starts racing. You could put together all kinds of cool stuff, and I bet you do.
Yeah, I always, in the first conversations that I have with someone, and even when we're talking about filling out these proposal forms, because after the inquiry, there's an artist application, which is probably not even a great way to describe it. But it should be the artist conversation. And I say, don't feel the pressure. If you can't answer all these questions right now, it's the invitation to a conversation about what the possibilities could be. So for my part, and certainly the organization backs this mindset, I don't need an artist that comes to the table. And of course it's easy if this happens, but you're ready made with their all checked out with the standards of learning and everything. Well, that's where we can help. They have talent and desire and a passion to work with young people. And if we can match that up with learning outcomes that we want, so that we can really put something on target and focused for its enrichment value, those are the conversations we want to have. And these things do develop and have developed historically. And I'm happy to be a part of it now. And that's cool, and that's a fun artistic process itself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I was surprised to see how many different programs and content types were offered. Like you said, anything from comedy, music, literary, storytelling, et cetera, and the fact that all grade levels and even parent programs are available. Yeah?
Yes, there are programs in professional development for teachers, and programs that work in community centers. I know we've got one coming up with the YWCA, and of course now with the shutdown, these things are pushed back a little bit, but it's still a program being developed for families that have been displaced or are experiencing homelessness through shelters and temporary homes. For this was actually a yoga and mindfulness program to come and work with parents and children together in a yoga physical experience and a hopefully an emotional spiritual experience to find some peace, and in a time that's probably really stressful and that we can't begin to understand, but in a small way, creating some positive moments that can lead to good next steps for all the stuff that can happen afterwards. So that was part of the concept to transition or develop from the idea of Young Audiences Virginia to Arts for Learning, because the programs and offerings will, and should reach everyone that it's applicable for, that will benefit from it.
Under that umbrella is the question of cost and financial assistance. You mentioned that there are compensation opportunities for teaching artists, and none of this is created in a vacuum. What is some of the structure as far as what it might cost families or schools or individuals who want to take advantage of some of these programs?
So a school can find us through the website, where we have a listing of all the programs that are available on the roster, and kind of choose something based on the descriptions there, or through the conversation with the school relationship coordinator or even myself to figure out based on where they are with their tracking of the pieces of curriculum that are being taught in a particular time of year, or syncing programs up, let's say with Black History Month, or this month it's Poetry Month. So finding programs that are going to be applicable to a specific time of year and needs of that school, and the funding, which, the paying for the programs, anything in the arts that's very labor intensive and a long process that a lot of work is put into to satisfy funders, and through the grant writing to create sources of money that can supplement these things and lower the cost for the school or institution to make it manageable. It's difficult. It would be extremely difficult were the institution to have to cover the entire cost of maintaining the office and the staff and the artists and everything. Because I also want to say, and hope we can talk about it, is that one of the things I'm most proud of and continue to be proud of even more, because it's brought up every day now during this shutdown, is another thing that Arts for Learning is really passionate about is creating quality paid opportunities for artists. So, and that is in our Take10 program, at the very heart of why we're creating this video series is, yes, of course, we want the programming to continue to reach the students, to reach the families, for them to be able to have this during this shutdown. But artists, creative people are suffering a huge loss, not only of income, but of, how fulfilling it is to do your work and contribute in that way. And in our meetings, I'm really encouraged to hear that how they're getting paid, what they're getting paid, when they're getting paid, is the information being disseminated about the various types of unemployment or organizations that might be able to provide assistance during this time, and making sure that all those things are making it to the artist, to keep them doing it. It's hard, as an artist myself, it's hard to keep a career going. Every year is almost the last year, except for very, very few. And there's no one everyone is making a sacrifice, even by doing it. I remember when I was, not to get too into myself, but when I was working as an actor in Philadelphia, I remember having to turn down creative work because I couldn't afford to take the loss of money compared to survival jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a unique situation. That's the common situation. So it's great that many of the opportunities that we can create are, rewarding. And I think that the way in which the money's used and who it's benefiting are things that I'm proud of. I'm proud to be associated with that.
Man, you're exactly right. And there's always that conflict when creativity and commerce intersect, because one is absolutely a real life fact that you don't get around, and one is something that drives you and is your passion and something you cannot do. I don't think everybody quite realizes that, the artist, when it's driving him or her, them, it's something you absolutely have to get out of yourself. And to find a resource like yours, I think, is great, because, the old adage is, will you pay for exposure? And the artist says, yeah, that'd be great. My rent is exactly 1,000 exposures, so
yeah. Local artist dies of exposure.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. Let's talk about some of the initiatives, and I want to get into a little bit more of Take10, which you mentioned, but let's go ahead and address that now. The live streaming you're doing. Go ahead and talk about Take10 a little bit.
Great. So the Take10 series is 10-minute videos, which are being posted to YouTube and being shared through social media, through Instagram and our Arts for Learning Facebook account, to create videos released during the day at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, and live performances through Facebook Live of an attempt to, like we were saying, continue the efforts as an organization to keep creating the way that we would if we were having a normal day, and no one's having a normal day. And also to create some opportunities during this shutdown for artists to continue on with their career and be able to do things. Now, the money, and I may be indiscreet and I won't name names, but I'm proud of it. The money that's funding Take 10 right now, before everything gets kind of rearranged with some of the grants, is being funded directly by a member of our board, like out of their own pocket. And the money is going to pay the artist. And we've broken it into several units. And there's a conversation, the heartbreaking conversation of, well, do you pay, if you can pay more to an individual artist for, let's say, one session and have fewer sessions? Or do you have more sessions so that you can offer it to more artists for less? And the money right now is not what it should be. It really is never what it should be,
right,
for all of the prep time and work that we don't see. Just like with teachers, there's more that goes into it than just let's say the hour, the 50-minute performance. It's not like, well, it was that. If you break it down by what you got paid for hour, it's like, well, it's not really possible to break it down that way.
As long as you include the 10,000 hours that were put into learning how to do it.
You've got it exactly. That's exactly right. So the Take 10 series is hopefully offering a little something to keep the artists going. And because we love them and we care about their work, and we don't want to see anyone have to transition too far away from the work that's so vital and that we really love that they do. And creating these video series, I've become, you want to talk about somebody who is out of their depth, is now that I am the world's most unprepared mini filmmaker. I'm learning how to make the simplest things that other people, tech savvy people, would just laugh at me, but simple edits through iMovie and other programs like that, file sharing and video uploading, camera operation, the mistakes I've already made about how Facebook Live works. This beautiful video, I was talking about Natasha's program yesterday. I was saying, oh, well, when we're doing Facebook Live, if I've got it vertical, in portrait, it's got these two bars on it. So let's just do it in landscape. And of course, loading that directly onto Facebook, the thing comes out completely sideways. So her whole video is sideways. And I was like, well, we should be able to go in there and rotate it. And
no, not.
Or
thank you, Facebook.
Yeah. So I'm learning things every day and becoming a little tiny filmmaker myself. But just like the artist, humbly, I'm very happy to still have work at this time. I'm very happy to be involved with something that I care about and to be able to keep this going and be a part of it. So the Take 10 series, we're again trying to represent the full gamut of art disciplines. So far, we've had Jennifer Gamble come in and do some Ella Fitzgerald and scat singing, and she did something incredible. Jennifer Gamble does something called flute boxing. So this is the combination of beatboxing and playing the flute
at the same time. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I'd never seen this before, and it made for a really cool video. That's up there now. If you were to go onto the Arts for Learning Facebook page, you can find the previous live performances and the on-demand performances of the videos that we're creating. And they're also on the Arts for Learning website. You can find them there. We had Joel Casanova from Beat Hunter Dance come in and do instructional videos. He does the b-boy hip hop style dance and some popping and locking. I can't describe it in the way he can, but he's so talented, and that captured beautifully on video. And Via Good from Good Stories coming in and doing some storytelling for us. That's great content, especially for our younger audience members to hear these great stories. And she just got wonderful energy. We had Tina Culver come in and play the violin. And we got a really special video. I'm going to be so excited when this one premieres, of our own staff member, Aisha Noel, receiving her very first violin lesson. So Aisha, I told her, I said, because Tina said to me, well, this is a really interactive part. And normally the students at this part will be doing this, and then I'll play over top of it. And I was like, well, we have some violins. Aisha, have you ever played the violin before? And she's like, no, absolutely not. I was like, well, you're in the video.
That's dirty pool because she didn't ask you to learn how to edit video in front of everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm the one who put out the sideways video, so we're all taking our lumps right now.
Their evidence is out there. Speaking of that, these are just streaming for anyone, or is it a part of a program? Can anybody go on and watch these?
Yes, this is free.
Okay.
This is just for everyone, and hopefully people will share it. And if they're moved by the work and they're encouraged by our efforts, there is a link that can be followed to make a donation so that we can continue doing the work. Because, like with all nonprofits, we are dependent in many ways on generosity and on people wanting to be, engaged and involved with it. We need that kind of community support. So hopefully the Take 10 series will provide comfort and fun and education for the families, will provide, a continued presence for us in the art community so that we're still out there, we're still making our things and still creating opportunities for artists and for the artists themselves, of course, to be able to do their work so that we're not only experiencing the joys of the quiet life of quarantine.
Yeah. Now, are all the programs and initiatives continuing, or are some of them on hold while we get through this? How's that work?
Well, the sad part is we've got this really depressing spreadsheet of all of the losses, let's say for the month of April, of the programs that had already been booked into schools, of artists that had already marked their calendars and contracted this time and their expectation to have those earnings at that time. And during the shutdown, obviously, when we can't go into schools, we can't fulfill the programs in their original intentions, what we really wanted to do, what we've trained to do. So we're not unique in this either. I mean, everyone has lost something.
I guess I wasn't putting that together. I was thinking maybe you moved it onto Zoom or something like that. That's conversations that are happening as well.
Yeah. And I know that there's conversations, including today. There's conversations happening potentially right now about what that would look like, or if that would carry the same weight and benefit, how to organize that as far as, do the schools want it? Do the students have access to Wi-Fi and devices? Can they attend? Because I'm also I teach acting at ODU in Norfolk. So I've made the decision with my class, and these are college students, that I don't know how fair it is to expect a ton of synchronous work to be happening, because many students have gone home. College students have returned they could be in different time zones. They could have more or less access to things like devices and Wi-Fi, and whether it's sort of I'm seeing this conversation go on about privilege playing a role in academic success right now, and the disadvantages that some students are coming from that we cannot measure, and how sensitive we should be to that. So the Take 10 is a mostly asynchronous platform for delivering this material through the videos being on demand. We do have our live videos on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern time, but we want the programming to be available when the students are available to receive it. Now, I think one of the things over time that will make our offering special, and what I think about an artist coming into your school, it can't be replaced by YouTube ultimately, because it should be and can be, and its greatest advantage is how real-time interactive it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, I hope no one judges me for this. I collect plays on tape. I'm a huge lover of Shakespeare, and I collect Shakespeare DVDs. And even as someone who loves it passionately, plays don't film well.
Right.
It doesn't make that jump to video better. And you're kind of trying to beat movies at their own game. And it highlights some of by that measure, the inferiorities of a theater performance versus a movie, because you're not competing in that visual, tech-driven, effects-driven platform, and you're not having the opportunity, as I was saying, to highlight one of the greatest advantages that theater has and that live art has, is the ability to be interactive, to create an immediate engagement that's happening only now in this time in this place. So there's a great need to return to that. And I know many teachers are having Zoom meetings, and I'm hoping, well, what I'm really hoping is that the world returns back to normal as soon as possible, and that we get back in schools and everyone can have their lives back. But whatever needs to be done to not experience a falling off the cliff of creation, we will meet that challenge and use the tech that we have, or transition the programs into being interactive through that interface. But really, for my part, and this is a subjective opinion, reluctantly, really, because it can't be the same.
No, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and conversations that are happening at the college level of, hearing my cohorts talk about bringing all of their material and lesson plans and all their bells and whistles and tricks online, and there's a fear in the back of their head or in the front of their head. The powers that be will say, well, this is just as good. Maybe we don't need as many of you. Maybe we have this as an online resource, and maybe this will replace the efforts of somebody there, and so I've even heard people encourage me, like, oh, as you transition to your class online, please do a bad job.
Oh my. Yeah,
it's like that. And that's not my voice in the subject. I feel like if we are generous, we'll see the rewards of that. It'll going. This is a time to give freely, and then we can worry later about how we return to normal. But
the implication there, of course, don't give a reason for it to continue like this, because many people are, as a cost-cutting measure, could be looking for exactly that.
Yeah, and that's not us. I'm really glad that that's not us, because I'm never going to be excited about something like that. The way that I get excited about conversations of, how do we continue to pay artists to do their work? How do we continue to reach more students and be with them? Because that's the thing in education. It's not always the program. Sometimes it's something else about the experience, which is the real enrichment that the student has.
That's a great point. And it speaks to the old adage of, it's not what you learn in college, it's the experience of going to college, the one-on-one and the experiences and the input from other people. And one of the biggest rules of success is, find really talented, smart people and surround yourself with them. I mean, that's absolutely valid.
Yeah.
A bit of a sidebar. You say you're a Shakespeare nut. We were having a conversation the other day about some of the veiled and not so veiled references in Shakespeare plays to the plague that was going around at the time, and some say may have actually shortened Shakespeare's career.
Yeah, and on the other side of the coin is I was reading that he wrote King Lear under quarantine lockdown.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that King Lear it's a plague play.
I was thinking specifically of Romeo and Juliet, where one of the characters, I don't remember which one, clergyman or somebody, was under quarantine in the play.
Yeah. You break quarantine. That's the play that could have been fixed with one text message. It's like, you're like, no. We didn't share the play.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So what's the best way for people to find out how they can get involved, become a member of one of your advisory groups, be an educator, a board member, internship, donor, anything?
Yes. Okay. All of those things are possible and encouraged. So we do have an artistic and education advisory group. People that would like to be involved, that have a background in either education or the arts, that they have fun responsibilities. It's not really dry work. You get to go and observe some of the programs that are being brought into schools and offer, hopefully, insight on what you're seeing, on the direction you think that a program could improve, develop, and grow. Also, the community is the biggest resource itself, and connecting us and introducing the organization to exciting artists that want to create innovative programs, and connecting those dots. Like, I'm not surprised that I met someone great like you through Synapse, because that's the community coming together. And it's like, oh, that conversation I'm saying I want to have, who you should talk to, and those are the great conversations. And our advisory group provides a great resource for that, observing our programs and helping us make connections, whether it be to schools or sources of funding or to artists. And also, if someone has the means to make a donation, you can make that directly through the website. You'll also find in the Take10 series, there'll be a link in the description to a donation page. We are a nonprofit group, so 501c3 tax deductible donations. Those are really valuable. And we are in many ways, as I said, dependent on the generosity engagement of the community. Someone may want to become an artist themselves. And like I said, on the website through yav.org, or emailing me at artsid@yav.org, you can join our roster and propose programs that we could put in. And I love to find a home for new stuff and to have those conversations and develop the work and get to know the work that's being done and the work that people want to get done. And if anyone can speak to any gaps, both areas that aren't being served, communities that aren't being served, art forms that are not being represented, So if you play something cool or know something cool or do something, or, know a person who does it, like, these are the conversations I want to have. So never hesitate to reach out to me personally or through the website. That's easily my favorite part of my job. And that's the exciting stuff to get up in the morning about.
You're going to be inundated with emails from theremin players and mimes.
I'll take them.
Okay, let's address it real quickly. The website is yav.org, which doesn't make sense since your organization is called Arts for Learning. Do you want to address that just a little bit?
There's a larger web domain that I want to make sure I get right, which I think is arts4learning.org, which will get you to the same thing. So because young audiences, of which we're the Virginia chapter, is 65 years in existence, we certainly don't turn down any of the web traffic from the former goodwill that they've earned honestly over the years. And I'm sure I'll get a note from my bosses about don't say YAV, but it's easier to remember. It's easier to plug in. It still gets you to the same place. And we don't mind. We'll be whoever you want us to be. We'll be Arts for Learning. We'll be young audiences. We just want to get the art out there.
It's a creative community. You're flexible.
That's right, man. That's right. We'll take it the way it comes,
Cool. Let me know if I've missed anything. Aaron Kirkpatrick with Arts for Learning, the education and artistic manager. Anything else to throw at people? And by the way, I think I'm going to run this also, little pull back the curtain thing, on my local music podcast, because there may be some opportunities, not just for people to help you, but opportunities for artists themselves to get involved. That's called Studio B. It runs up here, but it focuses on music in the Richmond area, Northern Virginia, and the beach. So hopefully maybe that'll help to get the word out. But anything we missed?
Well, I'd like to see how we can cross-promote people who are doing other valuable programs. So if you come across anyone that has, a valuable initiative, I'd like to see if we can use our platform to talk about that work that's being done. So that's a door I want to leave open about. So it's, how can we help? How can we get involved in the work that you're doing? Even if it's not directly creating programs through Arts for Learning, for us to support that community. And that's another thing, to jump back to our Take 10 videos. I'd like to think that the Take 10 videos are an opportunity to promote the work of the artists themselves. I want to say some more names before we get off.
Yeah.
James Cooper is local. He does work with puppets and does a geometrical, this visual art exercise that he's sharing freely with us. Harold Wood, who's been working in the area with students for years, just a really valuable, he does circus skills and magic, and he rides a unicycle, and he's an amazing storyteller with the kids, does programs about standardized testing and believing in yourself, this I can do it for young students. And is just a really just vital, valuable artist that we love and happy to have him. Had Jerry Lynn Ruger in, who's a teacher and an artist doing craft projects with us to, show kids how they can make a maraca out of an Easter egg and a spoon and some beans and pasta and things like that. And fun exercises and collage. And I just want to, if anything, I just want to say the names of the artists here and promote their work and support the work that they're doing and be a part of that.
That's excellent, man. Thank you so much for adding that in. But yeah, we'll share all this around. And if anybody knows artists and people in the creative community, donors, underwriters, et cetera, please get in touch with Aaron. And again, you can find it all in one central location, arts4learningva.org. Man, Aaron, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all this.
This has been great. Thank you so much. And let me know when I can share this podcast or anything else you're working on that I can promote and support your work. I really appreciate you, man.
I definitely will. And likewise, Aaron Kirkpatrick, thanks so much. Thanks to Aaron for his time and efforts and passion and creativity and everything he does at Arts for Learning, helping kids, helping artists, et cetera, et cetera. It's all in there. And there's a lot going on, which is why I was so surprised to find out about it. And it was really cool to get to sit down and talk with him a little bit virtually. As you can tell, everybody is doing the zooming in thing, and I'm no different. So if you've got an idea or a guest or a topic or anything, a cause, anything you want to contribute or suggest, hit me up at smackj@gmail.com. That's my direct email address, or you can hit up goodeyepodcast@gmail.com. Please do go to goodeyepodcast.com for all the back episodes and show notes. Go to, we're on Stitcher now, Google Podcasts, and then the traditional Spotify and Apple Podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. Thanks very much for your time and attention and for listening. Please do interact, leave a review. It helps. It really does. And I'll talk to you next time here on the Good Eye Podcast.